We've got some
Hey,
fresh new
I'm
young
Luis.
talent
And
doing some
I'm
things that I
Luis.
know you haven't
And you're
heard
listening to the
before.
Content is Profit podcast. Hi guys, and welcome back to Content is Profit. Today I'm coming with a mini rant. And I had two conversations yesterday with a couple of people that we've been dealing with for a long time in a good sense. We work together, we work on projects together. And I came to the realization that this is maybe why most people fail in the content game. And it's not about your messaging. It's not about your creation. It's not about your production levels. It's none of that. Because these people have, their messaging is very clear. Their creation process, one of them is kind of working on it, but the other one has it dialed in. Production level is as high as it can get. And we've encountered this bottleneck in a lot of the people that we've helped over the last 5 years. So I want to come in here and maybe share that story and help you move the needle forward with your content, because I am 110% sure that you're probably experiencing the same thing we did at the beginning of our story. And once that was unlocked, it helped us gather a ton of feedback and move the content, the podcast, everything forward and find our voice out there, right? So, we talked about the 6 levers, like I said, your messaging, right? So let's assume that you know who you're talking to. Let's assume that you know what problems are you solving for people online and in your business, right? Then we have the creation process, which is, how do you actually record this content? So let's assume also that you have that figured out, whether that's you're recording a podcast in your podcast studio, whether that's on your phone, however you produce that content consistently, right? So you're recording, once a week, twice a week. What is your consistency commitment? Let's assume that you have that under control, right? In our case is we record this podcast twice a week, for example, right? Then you have your production kind of figure out. So that could be you editing yourself or somebody, a team editing it. Or if you work with us, our team editing the content that comes out. And then is the dreaded and what I call that bottleneck is the distribution. Putting the content out there. And I think like a lot of people take this for granted, because when we start thinking about creating content, we think about, what am I going to say? Or like, what is the setup going to look like? Or how do I actually edit this thing? Or like, what team do I hire to do this? Right. And then more than likely, if you're tackling this yourself, which I know a lot of people on the podcast, are super encouraged to do their own things. And again, we started there. No shame on that. Amazing, right? I do believe that everybody has to control their own processes. And there's a stage to this is the distribution, putting the content out there, right? So the first conversation that I had, it was very eye-opening. It was somebody that, we've worked together for a couple of months now. They have a very, very big content output every single week. And, there's a part in our service where you could be a customer and we just give you the content, and then you as a company or as a team distributes that content. So we support there, as in we can jump on a distribution call, explain the framework, what is the content that we're delivering on a weekly basis. And on our side, we assume that you have that under control. The second part of the service is we take over organic distribution of the content. We don't run any ads. We don't, do any of that. We have different marketing partners to do that, but we can take that content and put it out on the podcasting platforms, YouTube, Rumble, if it's social media content on social media, and so on. And then your community manager or social media manager can take over from there. So there's a gap sometimes between that, and maybe a lot of people are not allocating resources to do that, whether that's your own time to distribute this content, which, by the way, a good example could be a 1 podcast episode and let's say 6 clips a week. That takes about 2 hours to put out there, writing the captions and so on. So my encourage is pay special attention if you feel like you're not posting enough, or if you have content. And sometimes that's going to stop you from creating more content, because I produced this, I haven't put it out there into the world, I'm not going to create more. So then the circle breaks and we don't receive feedback and we don't get better as creators. So pay special attention to putting the content out there. Right. So this person have massive volume. We're delivering all the content. And on the conversation that we had with them on our weekly check-ins, we find out that out of 70 videos that have been delivered, only 2 has been out there. And the reason I discovered this is because the initial feedback was like, hey, my content is not performing how I need it to perform, for example. And this is not just specific to him. It could happen to any of us. Or maybe we have an idea on how that content is going to perform when we put it out there, but it doesn't. Right. And then my question is like, okay, perfect. What's the baseline data? Like, how many pieces of content have we published? What is the average of the metric that you want to measure? And there was no answers because the content hasn't been out there. So as a first step is we need to establish that baseline. So if, whether it's a YouTube content, whether that's podcast episodes, social media content, establish your baseline distribution. I want to do this. I want to put it out into the world once a week, twice a week, 3 times a week, daily, 3 times a day. Doesn't matter to me, but make that commitment and stick to that and build the resources to be able to do that. So that's even you. If that's you distributing the content, there's tools out there. We use one called Metrical for social media content. It's amazing. You have Buzzsprout that puts your podcast episode in all the audio platforms. So there's ways to make this process a lot faster. But just make sure that you put a process in place to be able to do this. If it's not you, you can hire a virtual assistant that, prices for that range anywhere from like $3 to $10 an hour, up to you who you decide to do that. It could be an intern. It could be your son, your daughter. Like, who is going to put that content out into the world and establish a consistent framework? Be like, okay, every single day of the week. Again, if this is if you don't have a process, every single day of the week, for social media content, we're going to put a piece of content at 9 a.m. for the rest of the month, for example, and you stick to that. And then you're going to get these numbers that are going to be a baseline where you can start then testing things like, changing the type of video that you're creating, or changing the not only the type of video that you're creating, but also the style, or maybe making a little shorter, test something longer. I'll give you an example. We have the football show. We published a 20-minute episode. It did X amount of downloads on TikTok, for example. And then we tested a 6-minute segment, which did significantly more than those. And we're like, well, that's an interesting concept. Can we do more of these segments? And can we afford to do that with a team or with ourselves or so on? And you can start testing and see how you can reach more people. So the second story is very similar, but this person is creating content from his own phone, right? He's creating his own framework and he's trying different things like podcasting, talking head videos, almost like a day with me type of concept. Let's go train together type of concept. And, he's been creating, but then there was a stage where he didn't publish. So he didn't get any feedback. And then last week was the first time that he was able to publish every single day of the week. And he got very positive feedback from 2 of the videos. And from that very positive feedback, one of those was really hard to make. It will be taking a lot of time out of his day to be able to do that. So to do that consistently was really hard. And then the other of positive feedback was he actually enjoyed the process of making that style video. So from the 2 outliers that performed really well because he collected data over a week, he then decided, okay, I'm going to double down in the one that I actually enjoy and have capacity to create. So once you receive that feedback, you can go and adapt and you can do these things, right? So another example with like podcast episodes and clips, for example. So in our specific case, we have a consistent cadence that is podcast episodes distributed Tuesdays and Thursdays. And then we have clips almost daily going out every single day. That's our baseline, right? So let's say we have an average of X amount of downloads every single week or every single month. If we want to try a new piece of content or a new style of content, then we can go and create that initial, what we call a prototype. And then we can put it on the feed and see what happens, right? And we're like, okay, we're going to create one of these once a week for the next month. And we commit to that. We create it, we produce it, we distribute it, and then we see what happens. And then you compare both average and be like, okay, these clips took X amount of resources to create, money, time, team, whatever those resources are. And then the second style video took X amount of resources to make. We really enjoy doing it. It's something that we see ourselves doing a long time. Okay, perfect. Which one performed better? And then once you get that data, then you can go ahead and start introducing the new style to do something. So what it kind of boils my blood is trying to make decisions on that side just because I feel like it. And again, if you're doing it, you do your thing. But I feel like going off of the data, it might be a little bit better for the audience and the people that you're serving online. So that's my rant. I just want to come in here and share a little bit of that lesson. Do not neglect distribution. Please pay attention to that. A lot of people focus on the production and how it's going to look like and how I'm going to edit this. And then when it comes down to distributing that content, there's a big bottleneck because we don't account for that. So let this be my warning. I love you, and I hope this is helpful. Please let me know if episodes like these are helpful, and we'll see you on the next one. Take care. Bye-bye.